Hello, this is Edith Neumeyer, and I'm the author of the book, The Mystery of Adam. Well, today I'm going to talk about the Great Tribulation and the Rapture. I have been discussing that on many of my videos, the Rapture, specifically the Rapture. But I also talk to many people, and they're attacking you when you're saying, oh, the rapture. They say, oh, that's not in the Bible. Yes, I know that this word rapture is not in the Bible, but the concept is. And that's what we need to be going by. Now, many people, they throw out the rapture, or even what they call pre-tribulation rapture. They throw it out the window. But that's not because the rapture is wrong, but because the word Great Tribulation is not biblical at all. I mean, there is tribulation, a talk about tribulation. Even Jesus mentions tribulation, right? I'm not saying that tribulation is not in the Bible. I'm saying this concept of this Great Tribulation as a time period is not in the Bible at all. But people still treat it as if it is really biblical. And they make up all kinds of things about this Great Tribulation. Oh, they seem to know that the Great Tribulation is 7 years. And they think that this Great Tribulation is the same as the wrath of God. They think it's a synonym for the wrath of God. No place do we see that in the Bible, that the wrath of God is, is called the Great Tribulation. It is sometimes in the Old Testament called Jacob's trouble, but never, the wrath of God is never referred to as the Great Tribulation. So we need to look at that, because that causes a lot of problems. I mean, great problems. The rapture is our blessed hope. Okay, people in the early church, they actually greeted each other with the word Maranatha. And you may have heard that word before, Maranatha, but most people don't even know what it means. It means the Lord is coming, or come, O Lord. Okay? These people went through a lot of great tribulation, persecution, okay? And because they went through a lot of persecution, they were longing for Christ's return. Matter of fact, the early church were thinking that Jesus will come back during their own time. And so therefore, they greeted themselves with this Maranatha. This is Christ's return for the bride is our blessed hope. So we cannot just put away with this concept of Christ coming for his bride. I will talk in my second part of the video, I'll talk more about the rapture. But right now I want to really start out with Great Tribulation. Why is that a false concept? Okay? Again, Great Tribulation is in the Bible. You can find that in the Bible, but never as a time period. Now, what is tribulation? Tribulation is defined as a cause of great trouble or suffering. A state of great trouble or suffering. That's what tribulation is. And Great Tribulation is just great trouble and suffering. Okay, that's all it is. It is not the name of a time period. And it's not the name of the wrath of God. Okay? No place will you find that. So, sometimes when I'm arguing with people on this concept of Great Tribulation, I'm saying Great Tribulation does not even exist. They say, oh yeah, it does. And so then I say, well, show me in Revelation where you can find Great Tribulation. Or show me in the Bible where you can find Great Tribulation. Well, guess what? They usually come up with this word, the Great Tribulation, in Revelation 7:14. where this multitude is described in heaven, okay? And John is there, and somebody does not understand where this great multitude came from. And so then he says, well, it came out of the Great Tribulation. And of course, because we have this false concept that or thinking that there is this great tribulation at the end, correlating with the wrath of God, and they think this multitude comes out of this great tribulation or this wrath of God. And there's nothing that even supports that. The fact is that this great tribulation is described in chapter 7 in Revelation. Right after that chapter, the wrath of God is being described in chapter 8. Okay? So, the chapter before that, the unbelievers were hiding in caves and saying, hide us from the wrath to come. The unbelievers knew the wrath of God is coming. Okay? And you saw the signs of the coming of the day of the Lord. Okay? So then God has like a break, and this multitude is shown in heaven, which is the bride of Christ. Okay? The bride of Christ is not now on earth anymore. The church is not on earth anymore. Now the church is in heaven. Okay? And John now will see in the next chapter the wrath of God. We see the same thing again in I'm just thinking. Chapter 15 and 16. We see the wrath of God described again. And before we will see the 144,000 in heaven. Again, the bride of Christ. Okay? So, we always see the bride in heaven before the wrath of God. Okay? So, this Revelation 7:14 has nothing to do with the wrath, but it has to do with great tribulation. And it is the great tribulation the saints went through. The whole church from the beginning. When John wrote Revelation, all the way until the rapture happened, all the saints went through tribulation. Great tribulation. Great trouble and suffering. Okay? So, until at least 1500, until the Reformation, all the true believers were killed. Okay? All of them. There were very few left over. And if you put yourself against the Roman Catholic Church, you were killed. Okay? And even Luther was still extremely lucky that he was not killed. And I guess God was ready to bring forth the Reformation. But even after the Reformation, people were still killed. Now, today, the Roman Catholic Church are still persecuting the saints, but they're doing it in different ways today. If you go to my Facebook group called The Mysteries and Conspiracies, which help us understand Bible prophecy, I posted 2 documents about the Jesuits' oath. Okay? And in that oath, they swear that they will protect the Catholic faith, and they will persecute anybody who does not believe the same as the Catholic Church. Okay? They will persecute everybody, women, children, men. They will still today persecute these people. And they also were told that they are supposed to be infiltrating the Protestant church, the evangelical church, even the Judaism. and infiltrate them in order to mislead them and to bring deception to the group. Okay? So that is what's going on today. So even today, we are still persecuted, but it is a different persecution. It's not a physical persecution where we are killed, but definitely our souls. We are in a war with that wants to steal our souls. And there's severe deception. And this is how this false doctrine entered the church. Okay, that many call dispensationalism. That was started by Jesuits and a name called Darby, and it was distributed and made public by the Scofield Bible. But that is wrong. Dispensationalism wrong. Okay, it is really false teaching, and it not only says that there is this great tribulation, but there's also this Antichrist during the great tribulation. See, again, it's a Catholic scheme to divert attention from the Pope, who is really the Antichrist. See, the Protestant reformers, they knew that the Pope was the Antichrist. And so they had to come up with a counter, not a counter Reformation, but also a counter belief that the Pope is really the Antichrist. So they had to come up with this great tribulation at the end, and they come up with this false, not only the false name, but a false concept of what this great tribulation is. We hear constantly, oh, great tribulation, the mark of the beast, and the Antichrist, things like that, the saints being persecuted. No, the saints have been persecuted since the beginning, okay, and are still persecuted. Even like in the third world countries, the saints are being killed right now. We are lucky we're not. But because we are not, and we think we have it saved, we are never thinking that really the wolves are prowling around even in the church to devour every sheep they can. We don't think about that. And that's what's really going on today. Very, very heavily. So this whole concept of Great Tribulation as this section or this time period at the end, and they even came up with how long this tribulation is. This Great Tribulation is 7 years. And they even made this up. Oh, these 7 years are still not fulfilled with David's 70 weeks. I mean, how in the world can you come up with all these nonsense things? They're all extremely nonsense. But you know what? There's people out there that are just totally pushing this stuff. The more deception they can put out there and deceive people, I guess the happier Satan is. Because where is this stuff coming from? It is coming directly from papacy. Okay? It's coming from the Vatican. The Vatican who wants to destroy everybody who is not bowing down to what? The Antichrist. Okay? Everybody who's not bowing to the Antichrist or to the Roman Catholic Church or papacy, okay? They are using the Jesuits to destroy them. And okay, that destruction today is not physical. I have talked about the Noahide laws, and people are so scared that our heads are going to be cut off. That is not our biggest worry right now. The biggest worry is that we are being misled. Okay? So this concept of Great Tribulation is false. Now, how are we being misled? It's because people are not looking for the rapture anymore. They're not even looking for Jesus anymore. Oh, we're doing fine here. Why would we want to be raptured? Why would we want to be taken out? Well, also, this idea what the Great Tribulation is wrong as well. We are not being told that the wrath of God is destruction of the ungodly. Okay? All the ungodly are going to be destroyed. Do you understand that? Have you read Revelation? Have you read Revelation 8, 9, 10, and 11? The 7 trumpets, which give you an idea what the wrath of God is. Have you read Revelation 16, which gives you another idea of what the wrath of God is all about? That's what the wrath of God is about. It is destruction of the ungodly. Not only the false prophet, but also the beast, the Antichrist. Many people call him the Antichrist. Okay? Well, even that is wrong. This Antichrist at the end during the tribulation is false too. And some people wake up and say, hey, that stuff is false. But they're not throwing out the tribulation. What are they throwing out? They are throwing out the rapture. Okay? So again, this concept of the rapture was very important in the early church. People are expecting Christ to come. Jesus said, I will come back the way I left, in the cloud. Okay? And Jesus said, after the Lord's Supper, the Last Supper, he told them he is going to prepare a place for them. All right? And when I'm done, I'm going to come back and get you. Now, when do you think this first Christians believe that he's coming back? Well, he's coming back when the day of the Lord starts. That is the day when, the time, because the day of the Lord is actually 1,000 years, but the time Jesus returns. He comes back for his bride first. Okay? Then, after that, he will come and destroy his enemies. And that's exactly how it happens. Okay? That's the correct progression. First, he comes for the bride. And we see that in 1 Thessalonians 4:13. Okay? It doesn't say nothing about the rapture. I know that. But it is telling you that he is coming, for the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Now, some people say the last trump, that's when he is coming. No, this is not what he's talking about. He is coming with the trumpet call of God. Okay? It could be any trumpet. There's 7 trumpets, which are the wrath of God. They are just symbolizing 7 trumpets for the wrath of God. But this is talking about a different trumpet. Okay? Matter of fact, I believe this is the trump that we have in the Feast of Trumpets. Okay? Which is Rosh Hashanah. Of course, I believe the rapture, if you study Rosh Hashanah or the Feast of Trumpets, that is extremely symbolic for the rapture. Okay? For the rapture. And then the wrath of God happens. And then during Yom Kippur, which is, 10 days after Rosh Hashanah, and that is when God judges and establishes his kingdom. Okay? So all these things are laid out in the feast. You can't just get around it. All right? It is all laid out. First, the Feast of Trumpet, then Yom Kippur, the Judgment Day. But Rosh Hashanah is about the marriage. It's about taking the bride, okay, coming for the bride and the marriage ceremony. Okay? So this is what the rapture is about. It's not about the trumpets of the wrath of God. But again, it says, continue. After that, we who are still alive are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds. Clouds, okay? To meet the Lord in the air. And so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. It's very simple. Read it again yourself. 1 Thessalonians 4, starting with 13. It's very, 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 very uncomplicated. So you can read the same thing in 1 Corinthians 15, 51 through 55. And it gives you the same account. Now, okay, again, it doesn't use rapture, does it? It doesn't matter. It's the concept that counts. So now we need to think about when does this rapture happen? Okay, some people say, oh, it happens at the end of the wrath of God. Remember, Great Tribulation doesn't exist. We are going through Great Tribulation right now. This is what we are going through, Great Tribulation. Okay, once the wrath of God starts, before the wrath of God, the rapture will happen. And I'm using the word rapture, even though it's not in the Bible, but the taken out of the bride. Now, how do I know? Why? Because the marriage, the Jewish wedding ceremony. When you look at the Jewish wedding ceremony, the bridegroom comes to the bride, and it's called a betrothal. So they make the contract, the marriage contract, they're married, but the bride will leave and prepare a place for the bride. The bridegroom will leave and prepare a place for the bride. And then he will come back and get her again. And we can see that in the parable of the 10 virgins. Okay? That's why we have it. Now, when is that coming? It's coming in Matthew 25. That is right after Jesus starts talking about the end times, and he's explaining more how this end times is going about, or this day of the Lord is happening. And one of these things is, of course, the 10 virgins, the parable of the 10 virgins. The bridegroom will come and pick up his bride. Then the wrath of God will happen. Jesus will pour out the wrath, and he will destroy the enemies. Now, we know that Paul in 2 Thessalonians is telling us that we are not destined for the wrath. Okay? And that is in 2 Thessalonians. And I don't have it, I think it's 5. It's 4 or 5. And it also could be, actually, let me see. I don't see it. I know I printed things out here, so I kind of have a way to find things. But again, it's either in 1 Thessalonians 5 or it's in 2 Thessalonians when he talks about the day of the Lord. It tells you clearly that we are not destined for the wrath. Okay? So maybe read 1 Thessalonians 5, and I believe you will find it. Okay? So, yes, it is very obvious that this taken out of the bride will happen before the wrath. See what happens? Jesus comes, gets his bride, puts her in the rooms. Okay? Puts her in the rooms, closes the door. The 5 virgins that were not prepared are standing before the door. And what? It's going to be a horrible time. Okay? Why is that so bad? Because now the wrath of God starts. And I wouldn't want to be there. Okay? Now the same thing is taught to us by Isaiah 26, 19 through 21. Okay? I have quoted him so many times. Again, if you read 19, it says, "But your dead will live, Lord. Your bodies will rise. Let those who dwell in the dust wake up and shout for joy. Your dew is like the dew of the morning. The earth will give birth to her dead." This is the first thing that will happen. Okay? Then he's saying, "Go, my people, enter your rooms and shut the door behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until the wrath has passed." Then the wrath is coming. He's saying, "Come on, bride. I don't want you to be exposed to the wrath. Come into the rooms that I have prepared for you. Okay? And hide for a little while because the wrath is passing." Okay? Because he goes out, and the earth will disclose the bloodshed on it. The earth will conceal its slain no longer. Now, do you think God wants his bride to be killed in the wrath of God? I doubt it very, very seriously. God doesn't want that. See, every time you hear, and that's what I just said a while ago, every time you hear about the wrath of God in Revelation, every time the bride is up in heaven. Okay? Every time. Look in the trumpets, the 7 trumpets, which start in chapter 8. Chapter 7, the bride is in heaven. Same thing again, 15 and 16. Before that, the bride is in heaven. In chapter 14, the bride is in heaven. Every time. The bride is not going through the wrath of God. Now, of course, when you want to believe some stupid nonsense like the Great Tribulation, then of course people made up all kinds of stuff. Like, oh, there's going to be 7 years. 7 years even for the Jews. Well, the Jews don't have to be saved, do they? They have 7 years already, still left. No, they have to be saved, because even during that 7 years, even if there is 7 years, okay, if they would ever make it through this 7 years, which is the wrath of God, they would never make it as a bride, because the bride is taken out before the wrath of God. And the only thing that people that go through the wrath will have is they have a chance to be here again as human beings. Okay? As human beings. They will be guests to the wedding. That's the only thing. Would you want to really only be guests to the wedding, or would you be actually the bride and the bridegroom? I would think you would want to be the bride for the bridegroom, not the guest. So anyways, people, you need to start thinking. This whole concept of this dispensationalism has messed up everything. Not just the things that you think. Okay? Not just the things you think. Okay? There is no Antichrist during this tribulation that doesn't exist. We are going through tribulation right now, this minute. Oh, there's one thing I haven't even mentioned, what they always mention, and that is the tribulation that Jesus mentioned in Matthew 24. Matthew 24, all the way to verse 29, is about the destruction of the temple. And he is talking about the tribulation that the Jews will go through. Great tribulation. Okay, why? Because they rejected the Messiah, and now God is going to destroy them. He's going to destroy the temple, he's going to destroy Jerusalem, and he is going to send the Jews into exile. Matter of fact, he's going to have the most Jews killed, and very few were sent into exile. Okay? So, that's just the way it happened. And there was great tribulation during that time. But some people still say, oh, Jesus himself said it, that there's going to be great tribulation. But you know what? Jesus didn't talk about the end times until probably, I would think, about verse 29 in Matthew 24. The first part is about the destruction of the temple. And if you don't want to believe that, then read chapter 23 in Matthew. And that tells you that Jesus was talking about the destruction of the temple and the end times. So when he gets to 29, he is again quoting these things that will happen, which kind of show you that the day of the Lord is coming. Like the sun is getting dark, dark, and the moon is blood red, and the stars are falling, and these kind of things, okay? So these are going to happen. Then you know, oh, now the day of the Lord is starting, okay? But before that, it's all about the destruction of the temple. Then you go to chapter 25, and you learn more yet about this second coming of Jesus. And what is one of the parables? It's the parable of the virgins. Jesus is clearly telling you this is the way it is. Just like this parable of the virgins. There is going to be 10, and only 5 will make it into the chuppah, into the marriage chamber. And 5 will not make it. Why? Because they didn't even expect Jesus to come. They come and kind of look at this great tribulation and wait for this great tribulation when we're already going through. Okay? So if you want to be like that, well, go ahead and be that way. Because, all right, you'll be behind, and all you're going to have a chance to maybe be invited as a guest. And just maybe, people are worried about head cutting off. During the wrath of God, read the wrath of God. During the wrath of God, most people will not make it. Okay? Most people will not make it through. That is just the way it is. Okay? When you get to Revelation 20, at the end of the wrath, and not very many people, are left alive. It's going to be the souls that will be judged, whether they followed Messiah or not. But again, they will not be part of the bride of Christ. No, if you wait until the end of the wrath, you most likely, you will not. Sorry, I'm kind of cold, so I'm going to cover myself up with my blanket. So, no, you can't wait that long. So anyways, I'm going to come to the end today. Do your studies. I understand if you don't want to listen to me, okay? If you don't want to listen to me, go back and study this idea about the Great Tribulation again. Also, study this idea about the rapture. It is there. It's just not jumping out and saying, here is the rapture. No, you find the concept. Okay? You find the concept, but not as a name. But you can find Great Tribulation, and somebody used that word and just totally ran with it. Again, let the Holy Spirit guide you.